This is a pie floater and it's a South Australian classic. Its history dates back as far as 1890 and in 2003 it was officially recognised by the National Trust as a South Australian heritage icon, joining the ranks of other classic South Aussie dishes. Sadly, today all of the pie carts that once sold them around Adelaide have closed down. So to help keep that tradition alive, we're making our own. Let's get snacking. The simplest description of a pie floater is a beef pie floating upside down in a bowl of pea soup. In reality, it's a little bit more nuanced than that, but that description's a pretty good starting point. Speaking of starting points, I'm starting by gathering some ingredients, starting with 2 bay leaves which I'm picking fresh from my bay tree, which, as you'll see later in the video, I will completely forget to use. Next up, some fresh mint. You don't need a lot, and if you really don't like mint, you can leave it out, but I find a subtle hint of mint in the pea soup adds a really nice background flavour. So for this one serve, I'm picking around about 20 leaves. And then we'll need some onion. My onion plants are fruiting at the moment, so I'm just checking those to see if any are ripe, and that one looks pretty good. If you don't have enough space in your backyard for a full-sized onion bush, you might want to consider one of these bonsai onion trees. They're a little bit more effort to prune, but they take up much less space and produce these cute little bonsai onions, and for this recipe, one small onion like this should be just perfect. So we're going to take our small onion, lop it in half, peel it, and then roughly dice it. And then I'll move those aside and grab a potato, which I'll cut in half again, and then into small chunks. To prepare the mint, I'll just pick the leaves off of the stems, and next onto the peas. And you could go a number of different ways here. Some people prefer to use a can of pre-prepared British-style mushy peas, but personally I like frozen baby peas. They're easy and convenient, they're really sweet, and as long as you don't cook them for too long, they retain a nice vibrant green colour. So for this single serving recipe, I'm using 1 cup of frozen peas. Whoops, I peed on the cutting board. Whoops, it looks like I'm peeing all over the place. Next, depending on how thick you like your soup, we're going to need 1.5 to 2 cups of your very best homemade chicken stock. Now, with a saucepan over medium heat, I'm adding a good chunk of butter, and when that's melted, I'm throwing in the onions. Whoops, and I'm just going to rescue that piece of potato. And I'm giving those a little bit of a stir just so they start to saute. Whoops, and there's another rogue piece of potato. Meh, it's probably fine, it can stay there. These will need a good pinch of salt, and then just leave them to saute until they turn translucent. Then in with the potatoes, followed by the stock. And this is where, if I hadn't forgotten, I would have thrown in the bay leaves. Let that come to a boil and boil away until the potatoes are nice and soft. I like to check their doneness by stabbing them with the blunt end of a spoon. If they're nice and soft and it penetrates easily, that means they're done. These look like they need a little bit longer. Okay, it's been another few minutes, so I'll fish out another piece of potato, and this time around, they're looking nice and soft. I think they're done. At this point, I'm throwing in the frozen peas. This will cool things down and stop the boiling, but that's fine. There'll still be enough heat here to lightly cook the peas, but still allow them to maintain their bright green colour. So I'll give those a stir and then turn off the heat, and then I'll throw in the mint leaves to let those infuse. And if I hadn't forgotten to throw them in, right now I'd be removing the bay leaves. And then I'm going to puree that until it's nice and smooth. You can leave this a little bit chunky if you prefer some extra texture, but I like to get mine nice and smooth and have the extra textures come from the pie itself. And then I'm going to give this a final taste for seasoning. I think it needs a pinch of extra salt and a generous few cranks of black pepper. I also think it could do with just a little bit more brightness, so I'm adding a small squeeze of lemon juice just to give it a little bump of acidity. One more quick blend to get that all mixed together, and that is now tasting perfect. And in my opinion, the best pie for a pie floater is a pre-made one. You absolutely could make a really elevated version of this with an amazing quality steak and ale pie, but at its core, this is a simple dish, so for me, a simple beef pie works just fine. This is just a basic frozen pie from the supermarket, and to cook this, I'm going to preheat a fan-forced oven to 175 degrees Celsius, remove the frozen pie from the packaging, and put it in the oven on the middle rack for 30 to 35 minutes, or until golden brown, because that's what it says to do on the packet. And I would highly recommend not handling the hot pie with your bare hands, but I'm not your mum. If you want to risk it like I did, then go right ahead. And then in preparation for the pie, we're going to fill the bowl up with that lovely pea soup. Make sure that you've warmed it back up so that it's piping hot, and then to place the pie. The top of the pie with its dry puff pastry and thicker outer ridge is the most robust part of the pie, and this part of the pie will do the best job of standing up to that hot soup without getting soggy. So we're going to flip it upside down, exposing its nice tender underbelly, and then gently lower that into the soup. And then in my opinion, the absolute essential condiment for this, some good old Aussie tomato sauce. If you're outside of Australia, ketchup is pretty similar and would be a perfectly fine substitute. And this needs a generous amount. The sweet but tangy, savoury flavour of this sauce really brightens up the whole dish and brings it all together. And then I'm going to give it a completely unnecessary garnish with a sprig of mint. And now, all that's left is to dig in. And once you crack through that crispy shell of pastry, the unctuous meat and gravy oozes out, giving a wonderful contrast of smooth and vegetable and chunky, unctuous meaty textures. Combined with the smooth and zippy tang from that tomato sauce, it's absolutely brilliant. Just one bite of this and you'll see exactly how this came to be a South Australian icon. It's such a delicious and satisfying dish. Whoops, it looks like I was enjoying it so much I've spilled a bit. Oh well, that's easy fixed. Delicious. For another Australian icon, click on this video next, or YouTube thinks you'll enjoy this one. And until next time, happy snacking.